Gamers, the PS5 Pro is a mind-blowing update, but I do feel it's not a necessary one, especially for everyone. Here is the good, the bad, and the ugly of the PS5 Pro. Let's do this. So first up, the facts and figures. The PS5 Pro is a mid-gen update, akin to what the PS4 Pro was to the PS4. Everything is souped up to the max, but it's not a new generation of console. We have the same processor here, but a much more improved GPU and a bit more storage, especially when compared to the OG PS5. Pitiful. We also have much more improved ray tracing baked right into the silicon of the console. This is going to make our games look even more spectacular. And rounding off the big three, the key MVP here, if you will, is PSSR, PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, or something like that. Either way, this is AI upscaling, very similar to DLSS or FSR that you find on PC, and this is what will make our games pop. Oh yeah. And the last fact, and it's a massive figure, £700 for a console with no disk drive and not a single vertical stand. Wow. And that brings us on to some points of contention. Let's just address the elephant in the room straight away. Yeah, £700 is an obscene amount for a console. The real question here is the upgrade worth it? And that's the thing, that's the most important thing here, is this console is built and designed for an upgrade, not necessarily for a person coming fresh into this generation. And with that in mind, we could offset the cost of this new console by selling our previous base PS5s, if you will. But £700 is a lot of money, no matter which way you want to cut it. But for me, yeah, I've enjoyed it so far, but more on that later. The next point of contention is the fact that the console comes with no disk drive. Now, don't get me wrong, I fully am aware that most games are sold digitally, but come on Sony, come on PlayStation, this is your pro console, this is your most prestigious console, and yet it's lacking features like a disk drive that the base console came with. Yeah, that's not good. Your pro machine should come with everything baked in it on day one in one package. The next point of contention is that this is not a big enough jump, and I don't necessarily understand this. This isn't a PS6, this is a mid-gen refresh, right? But what I've seen, what I've personally experienced has really and truly blown me away. Now, this is just on games that have been retroactively updated and not games that have been built from the ground up using all the tech that's available. But again, more on that later. This leads me to another point of contention that I don't really understand, and that is that there are no new launch games for this console. Again, this is a mid-gen refresh, so whether or not there is a new game for the console or not doesn't make much sense to me, because that new game would have been on the PS5 as well, which again leads to the fact that even if this was a PS6, there would be cross-gen games, and the same people that are saying that there are no games for this no new games for this console would have probably also said that we can play this new game on the PS5, so we don't need a PS6. But yeah, and the last point of contention, and one that I kind of understand, and that is you should have gotten a PC. But the bit that I don't necessarily understand is a lot of gamers, myself included, simply just prefer to play on console. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I just prefer to play on console. I have owned a gaming PC in the past. It's 12 years old, probably won't be able to run anything recent or relevant within the last 2 years. But even when I did have that gaming PC, I just found myself gravitating towards playing my games on console. And not only that, there is this perception, be it true or not, that PC is just far more expensive than console. And for what I want to do on PC, yeah, that's going to take a few, probably several PS5 Pros. So yeah, but watch this space. The gaming PC is coming. So gamers, let's get into it. Let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. The 5 things I love, the 3 things I don't quite like, and the 2 things I absolutely hate about the PS5 Pro. So first up, the good. So the first thing I love about the PS5 Pro is the design. Now, it's a lot more compact than the OG PS5, and I haven't been fortunate enough to have upgraded that version of the console to the PS5 Slim variant. But having the Pro side by side with the OG launch edition PS5 has made me appreciate just how sleek and compact this version of the console is. The Pro is simply a much more refined and sleeker bit of kit. Also, something that I did not appreciate about the Slim was that it came with 2 glossy plates. Yeah, the plates on the Pro are the same as the OG PS5 plates. They're matte, and I absolutely love that. Granted, you can buy matte plates for the Slim PS5 and you can't buy any plates for this current one. But yeah, we will be changing it to black plates as soon as they come available. Also, in my eyes, the console looks far more aggressive than any variant of the PS5. Those additional racing stripes that give it that extra boost in horsepower just, to me personally, look fantastic. The next thing I love about the PS5 Pro is the additional storage. 2 terabytes. I was living on 825 gigabytes. Painful. I had to go out and buy more storage, an additional 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, because the games aren't getting any smaller. And yeah, back then, prior to me having the extra storage, it was painful. Downloading, installing, deleting, yeah, I just wanted to game and game freely. And I don't know if many of you remember this, the NVMe slot wasn't even activated originally. So there was a period of time, however brief, where I had to constantly delete and uninstall games just to install and do updates for other games. I mean, Call of Duty ate that storage up like it was nothing. The next thing I love about the PS5 Pro is the future. Now, I am going to be one of the first people to tell you, never buy into a product based on future promises. But I really do trust PlayStation and I really do trust Sony. They haven't really let us down in the past, and I highly doubt they're going to in the future. And yeah, as I mentioned before, the games we are seeing now, the games that are blowing my mind and a lot of other people's minds away, are being retroactively updated for the tech inside the PS5 Pro, meaning that they weren't built from the ground up with this tech in mind. And yeah, though some of the changes are subtle, some of the changes are drastic, and overall, everything I've played that has had a PS5 Pro enhancement has blown me away, even some games that haven't had it. All this to say that the games that will be built from the ground up on the PS5 Pro are going to look stupendously good, and they will probably extend the gap between the base and the Pro console even more than we see today. And for the sole reason that developers, Sony and third party alike, love to push hardware to their limits. And yeah, I can't wait to see how they do that with the PS5 Pro. But on top of all that, PSSR is an algorithm, and that algorithm is going to improve over time. And those improvements are going to be felt not only on the games today, but on the games of the future. And so yeah, the games that are blowing my mind away today are just going to look even better in probably a few months or a few years time. The future is looking bright for the PS5 Pro. And yeah, that's why I absolutely love the future with this console. Or I hope I will love the future with this console. And the last thing, the thing I love most about the PS5 Pro is that my backlog just got a hell of a lot bigger and better. So games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Dragon's Dogma 2 were on my list to play, but yeah, it would have been a situation where I would have either tried to get them on PC if and when they released, or just waited for the PS6. But with the improvements I have seen, especially the analysis from Digital Foundry, yeah, I'm convinced that these games need to be played ASAP on the PS5 generation. And even more to the point, these games and just the performance in general has made me think twice about stepping too quick into PC. This has allowed me to probably hold off a bit longer in transitioning or purchasing a gaming PC. I don't think I'll transition. I do think I will stay a console gamer at heart, even when I do inevitably get a gaming PC. But yeah, it's a good problem to have, right? An even bigger backlog that will look even better when I finally get to it. Yeah, that's something all gamers want and all gamers love. More games to play and games that run and play phenomenally. Okay, so I know I said that the backlog of games is the thing I love most about the PS5 Pro, but looking back on that point, it's in fact the graphics and performance that this console delivers to those games and the games in the future. Simply put, I was blown away. I am not going to even attempt to do Digital Foundry's job. There is no one better to compare games side by side than them. But what I can say is, yeah, I was blown away. In fact, I would play a game on the PS5 Pro, be blown away, and then something in the back of my head would be like, maybe this is placebo. Go back and check it on the base console. And yeah, it's just such an amazing experience to witness this. And it's something that cannot be portrayed accurately through a YouTube video. Now, I am not saying that all the changes in performance and graphics are stupendously amazing versus the base console. But what I am saying is, even if they are subtle, all those subtleties add up to make a massive improvement over the base console. And it's something that you're not going to notice through 1 minute of gameplay or looking at stills of side-by-side comparisons. You're going to notice this when you've sat down and spent an hour or two playing the game and then hopping back to the base version and playing the same section of gameplay. And you're going to realize that, oh, do you know what? I never noticed that bit here. Or, oh my days, this gameplay mechanic has felt so much better on the Pro version that going back on the base version just doesn't feel right. So those were the 5 things I love most about the PS5 Pro. Let's discuss the 3 things I don't quite like. So the first thing I don't quite like about the PS5 Pro is that I now feel like the whole lineup has become way too fragmented. By that, I feel like Sony could have had a massive W here, right? By really consolidating their range. But now they have 3 variants of console covers to sell for 3 or 4 different versions of the console. This is just getting messy quickly. Additionally, it's a bit confusing for the consumer because the Pro variant, which you would assume would have all the features of a base console, just isn't the case. It doesn't come with a disk drive. It does not come with a vertical stand. And these are 2 things that the OG launch PS5 came with. And yeah, this one's a bit hit and miss for me really. But the Pro console doesn't come with the Pro controller. And the reason why it's hit and miss is because, yeah, I would have loved it to come with the DualSense Edge, but I also realized that they would have probably priced this at £800 or dollars instead of £700/dollars just for the addition of that pad. And that would have been even harder to swallow because I would have wanted to get a disk drive as well. Now, the next thing I don't quite like about the PS5 Pro is that there are still a bunch of graphical/performance options within games. Now, don't get me wrong, choice is always a good thing, but I do feel that the increased amount of choice now can be a bit overwhelming. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of gamers do not want to venture towards PC gaming. If I'm being completely frank, I would have assumed that this would have just taken us back to the days where there were no options, right? We just got a solid 4K 60 or 4K 120 if your setup could allow it. But yeah, now we find ourselves with 3 or 4 additional modes in games on top of the 2 or 3 that we had before that. I guess developers are trying to figure things out, but I really do hope that we do progress to a place where the Pro version is literally an amalgamation of fidelity and performance in one, just like Mark Cerny said. But the thing I like least about the PS5 Pro is the PS5 Pro labeling. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not the fact that some games are labeled PS5 Pro and some aren't. That is great. That is fantastic. I do want to know what games will utilize the machine I've just spent all this money on. But what I mean by that is that's just it. It's just the label. There is nothing to say what's actually been improved. There is literally nothing that says that we've boosted frame rates or increased ray tracing or reduced latency. There's absolutely nothing that gives a description to what is actually being PS5 Pro enhanced within particular games. Now, the gaming community has come together and detailed all this information on Reset Error, link in the description below. But again, this is the gaming community doing this, and this is something I feel Sony, PlayStation, and the developers of these games should have been doing in the first place. But yeah, those were the 3 things I don't quite like about the PS5 Pro. Now, let's talk about the 2 things I absolutely hate. Now, the first thing I hate about the PS5 Pro is the price. I don't think anyone was expecting that this console was going to cost £700 or $700. Now, I do not regret purchasing this console at that price. I have absolutely loved my time with it so far. But my expectation was that it would be $599 at the top end with a disc drive. My hopefulness was that it would slot in at the same price as the disc-based PS5 base. But yeah, here we are. The OG consoles, well, the base versions of the consoles have only gone up in price, and this is an obscene amount of money for the Pro version. So yeah, welcome to 2024. And if you're like me, you have to spend even more money just to play the collection of physical media that you've already purchased for the base machine on the Pro variant, which is just even more money gone out the window. What they could have done is had bundles set up where it was an additional £50 or $50 for the disc drive. That would have been an easier pill to swallow. And that leads me on to the thing I hate most about the PS5 Pro, and that is the fact that it does not come with a disc drive. In what world does your Pro console not come with a disc drive? I guess in this world, right? I get it. Digital games are selling much better than physical media, and that's not going to slow down. But you've provided gamers with a disc drive in your base console. You still provide gamers with a disc drive in some of your base consoles. So for you to not provide gamers with a disc drive in your top-end flagship console, to me, is ridiculous. Like, this console is meant for your most engaged customers, and I'm willing to bet, now I don't have any data here, but I am willing to bet that the correlation between your most engaged customers and the amount of physical games those customers have is high. And so I can only think that Sony have tried to pull a fast one on us, which has worked by separating the two, knowing that we would all just go out and buy the disc drive anyway. I guess at the end of the day, this is business, right? But so with all that being said, what are my actual personal thoughts? First up, this console is 110% made for enthusiasts. In fact, when I talk about enthusiasts, this is probably the top 1% of enthusiasts. And by that, I mean gamers like me, gamers that own practically every console and own them specifically for the exclusives they deliver. Less so on Xbox right now, but that's a different story. And if I'm being frank, the PS5 Pro has shown me just how amazing the base PS5 actually is. Sure, going back and playing games I've completed on the Pro was phenomenal, and I wish I could have played them like this in the first place. But it did not take away from the enjoyment and pleasure I got from playing them originally on the base console. Jitters, frame drops, and all. Additionally, you need the right setup to take full advantage of this console. And by that, I mean you need 120Hz screens with VRR enabled. And yeah, I upgraded my whole monitor setup just for this console. But again, that's just more money spent on this already expensive, obscenely expensive machine. I say all that to say this. If you don't have the setup that will take full advantage of this console, then yeah, don't bother getting it unless you are planning on upgrading your setup to take full advantage of it. The base PS5 console is still a phenomenal console, and yeah, you won't be disappointed with that. Sure, as I mentioned before, the games we are seeing and playing on the Pro now were built for the base PS5 and are being retroactively updated for the Pro console. So yeah, I do suspect that in future, especially with PSSR, games are just going to look far better on the PS5 Pro than on the base console. But we are in the land of diminishing returns, and I still assume and hope that the developers do make sure that their games run and look phenomenal on the base PS5, which I'm sure they will do. At the end of the day, this console is a very niche machine. I suspect that probably around 5 to 10% of PS5 consoles sold will be a Pro version. That means that 90 to 95% of the consoles out there, the consoles that are actually making developers a ton of money, are the base version PS5s. And so just by sheer numbers alone, the developers have a duty of care to ensure that their games run properly on that version of the console. But my last thought on this, and this is a bit of a funny one, is that this has made me rethink the way I plan to purchase games in the future. And by that, what I mean is I own every console from every gaming manufacturer currently. So I own a Switch, an Xbox, and a PlayStation 5. And that's for each console manufacturer's exclusive games. But the Xbox is quickly going the route of third party. And by that, I mean that a lot of their games will be available on other platforms. And even though I've got Game Pass, it is making me rethink whether or not I should play some games on the PS5 Pro instead. Whether I like to admit it or not, I drop about 200 to 300 hours into Call of Duty each and every year. And yeah, I have been enjoying Black Ops 6 on Game Pass. But the fact that Black Ops 6 is one of the best Call of Duties we've had in a very long time, I'm now thinking, should I not be playing this game on the console that I think I will truly enjoy it the most on? And that is on the Pro. And this also lends to the fact that Indiana Jones might look and run better on the Pro. Doom the Dark Ages might look and run better on the Pro. And so now I've got a dilemma. Do I just play these games on the Xbox for free on Game Pass, or do I bite the bullet and buy them on the PS5 Pro, where I will enjoy those games to the fullest on console? But yeah, that's a topic for another video. But with all that being said, I give the PS5 Pro a 7. And though I do think this is the best console you can get on the market right now, and I gave the OG base PS5 a 9 and the Xbox Series X an 8, I do feel that it's a console that not everyone should go out and buy. And if you do buy it, you should subsidize the cost in some way, whether it be selling a bunch of games, selling a console or consoles that you don't use, or selling your base PS5. So yeah, that's why I put it at a 7. In my heart, this is a 10 out of 10 console, but I don't want to deceive the gaming community that we are trying to build here. And for that reason, I can only recommend this if you are an enthusiast, or if you are upgrading your console and planning to sell your base console. In a nutshell, this is a phenomenal console, and if you do end up getting it, congratulations, you're in for an amazing time. If you're planning on sticking with your base PS5, again, well done. You've made a very wise decision, and you are going to be happy in the long run. But yeah, with all that being said, I would recommend to the enthusiast a PS5 Pro. 100%. But yeah, it is a very good console with a very bright future. And as always, gamers, happy gaming.